Margarita, and welcome to the organization. Buenos dias, everyone. Yes, it sounds wonderful and vibrant today. It's such an honor to be here with you today as Familias and Acción brings us all together once again to harness our collective power, our poder, and to continue working towards reproductive justice. And I also want to appreciate Familias and their partners that they're courageously lifting up the topic of reproductive justice and health, because we know these topics have in the past been hard ones for our Latino community to grapple with. And it's resulted in the past in secrecy and shame and fear that so many of us, myself included, used to feel, but no more. Today, we are all reclaiming our place in this conversation and in this fight. And we see this courageous movement evolve and deepen the conversation around reproductive freedom. And that's personally moving to me, and on a community level, is liberating for all of us. And as you know, we all know this in this room, that rights don't matter if you can't access them. So I'm thrilled to stand here in solidarity with all of you to ensure that not only that we're talking about making reproductive health, including abortion, safe and legal, but also affordable and accessible, no matter how much money you have, and no matter where you were born, no matter your gender identity, no matter what your race, no matter what. And as the daughter and granddaughter of immigrants, healthcare equity has always been a very, very deeply personal issue to me, because we didn't always have healthcare in my family. And perhaps like some of you, I also come from a family of farm workers who came to this country from Durango and Chihuahua, Mexico, seeking opportunity, yes, Chihuahua, and Durango, seeking a better opportunity and a better life for their children. And after years of picking every single fruit and vegetable that you can think of in Texas, in New Mexico, in California, and in Oregon, they decided to make Oregon their home permanently. And probably like many of your stories, it wasn't easy for them. Just like probably a lot of your families, they faced racism and discrimination, and sometimes they had to fight for opportunities and also fight for their rights. But my family also found and created a really safe circle of love and community in places where we weren't welcome. So they were there for one another, because that's what we do. Our communities, we build community together, right? We know that. And our communities and our families know that our identities, our experiences, and our differences are our greatest strength and our greatest source of pride and belonging. And that's also helped us unite, right, in our fights for education reform, labor rights, and also getting more Black and brown people elected to office. And it's also why extending that belonging and acceptance needs to also include the fight for reproductive health and justice, and remove the stigmas and secrecy for good, and also turning our stories into acts of courage. And it's in this spirit that I've decided to share my personal story in public for the very first time. As I mentioned, I grew up in a farm worker community in Washington County, and in that time when I was a teenager in the early 90s, we didn't talk about reproductive health and family planning in my family. And as a teenager, it was not unusual for a lot of my friends and even some of my own primas in my family to experience unplanned pregnancies. But I had other plans. I was a first-generation college student. I had just earned a full-ride scholarship to attend the University of Oregon that fall of my 18th birthday. And it was around this time that I also started dating one of my first serious boyfriends. I'll call him Mateo to protect his identity. And Mateo also came from a farm worker family, and his parents were very religious and strict, like mine were. But because we were considered good kids and our families knew each other for many, many years, both our families supported our relationship. And for a while, I was able to balance, all the demands of schoolwork, getting ready for college, and also my personal life. But soon, he started exhibiting some toxic behavior, jealousy, controlling behavior, which would often lead to explosive fights. And this quickly escalated and grew into a physically and emotionally abusive relationship that lasted well into my first few months in college. And I even found out that he had been cheating on me with one of my friends. So I was so humiliated, I was so ashamed. This was my first boyfriend, whom I was physically sexually active with. And in my 18-year-old mind, I had to make this work, and I had to hide the secret so that I didn't embarrass my family or Mateo's family, right? And so whenever I attempted to end that relationship peacefully, Mateo would resort to stalking, threats of suicide, and one really terrible incident where he actually pulled a gun on me. And he nearly killed me that day, but still I stayed there. I stayed with him. I was feeling trapped, I was feeling isolated and alone and scared. And then on top of that, I learned I was pregnant. And the shame and embarrassment and fear of disappointing everyone was overwhelming to me at that age and at that time. But despite that, there was this deep inner voice that kept popping back into my thoughts. And I'll never forget this. It was a strong gut moment when I finally listened to it. And it said, "This is not normal. My life is worth something. And if I continue to stay and have a permanent tie to Mateo through a child, I won't ever go back to school." I also knew in my gut that I would likely end up dead. I had to make a hard choice. It was really, really hard, but I chose myself. And I know what that inner voice is. Do you know what that is? It's our strength. It's our cultural survival, and it's our sense of justice, and the wisdom of 1,000 abuelas, tías, and hermanas in there rooting for us. A wise Latina mentor once told me that the most radical act of social justice we can do is to take care of ourselves first. And to this day, I really do truly believe that that is true. The abortion care that I received at a health center in Portland was compassionate, it was confidential and professional at a time when I was so scared and so anxious, and I needed it the most. And in the face of unrelenting shame from my boyfriend, I experienced a safe, secure, and non-judgmental environment. It was an incredibly scary time, and as I think back on it, I try to hold compassion and love for that 18-year-old young woman whose life was at a crossroads. And today I know that without access to abortion, my life would have been very, very different. I may not have ever escaped this toxic relationship. I may never have graduated from college. I may never have been able to pursue my career goals, and I may never have had a path that enabled me to be up here, being the first Latina ever elected to Portland City Council in the history of the And now that we've lost the constitutional right to reproductive choice, I continue to be outraged by the continuous and nonstop attempts by politicians and judges who want to control our bodies. And the statistics are grim. I am deeply saddened for the 1 in 3 women who now live in states where abortion is not accessible. And I grieve for the millions of lives that have been harmed, especially women of color, people with low income, and rural folks. And at the same time, I'm extremely grateful to live in a state that affirms people's agency over their own bodies, and grateful for organizations like Familias and Acción, and others who are fighting to ensure that we have access to reproductive health and enabling people like me to reclaim our own stories. Now more than ever, states like Oregon must remain a safe access point for countless people who have lost the right to this essential health care. And in 2021, Portland City Council made a very strong commitment to reproductive freedom by taking meaningful, patient-centered actions against Texas Senate Bill 8, which banned abortions at 6 weeks, before most people even know that they're pregnant. This devastating policy also deputized Texans to report their fellow community members if they suspect violations. Portland City Council voted to dedicate $200,000 to abortion funds to ensure that people most harmed would have financial, practical, and emotional support to the care that they needed. And this made Portland the first city in the nation to take action after the Texas abortion ban went into effect. And that's something that we're proud of. Finally, I want to share that I strongly support the Equal Rights for All campaign, which is working to place a statewide measure on the 2026 ballot that will protect and affirm reproductive rights, transgender healthcare rights, and marriage equality in the Oregon Constitution. Yes, we need to remember that. And I encourage all of us to take a strong stand for this campaign. We need to do this for future generations and for their health and for their self-determination. And as you know, the reproductive justice movement recognizes that access is meaningless without immigrant justice, a stable climate, without affordable homes, and without safe communities. So I will continue to do everything in my power to make sure that we are working to reach those goals too. And I want to personally express my gratitude to all of the service providers in this room and across the country who continue to provide care in the face of hostility, and who work to become more, and the work will become more challenging ahead. And also from the bottom of my heart, I want to recognize all of you advocates and activists who are working tirelessly to ensure that everyone receives the full reproductive freedoms that they deserve. So thank you all for your dedication, your fearlessness, and for being that example that I wish I had back when I was 18 years old. You are making the world a better, safer place for future generations. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm so honored, and have a wonderful conference today. Thank you.